She's so fine. Hell of a blows my mind. Hell of a lights my day.
Little more than a skull in the snow and a vertebrae and some teeth in a garbage bag were found behind a Twinsburg business back in 1982. Stored in the medical examiner's office for 39 years, we now know those remains belong to Frank Little Jr.
What's good, guys? This story is coming out of Twinsburg, Ohio. I believe it came out yesterday or earlier today. And I want to thank both Marie722 and D. Walsh for sending this story to me. I took this story from the CBS News website, and it actually came out today at 6:23 a.m. Mystery remains of homicide victim found in 1982, identified as those of former O'Jays guitarist, Frank Little Jr. Skeletal remains found nearly 40 years ago have been identified as those of a guitarist who once played with the R&B group the O'Jays, and also co-wrote a few of their songs, investigators said. Authority used DNA and genealogical research to identify the remains of Frankie Little Jr., which were found in a garbage bag in a wooded area behind a business in Twinsburg in 1982, said Summit County Medical Examiner Lisa Kohler. Recent research and testing from the DNA Doe Project led to the identification of Little after a close relative provided a matching DNA sample, CBS affiliate WOIO-TV reported. There were distant DNA matches that were from South Carolina that we reached out to, and they were willing to help out and provide family trees, Detective Eric Hendershott of the Twinsburg Police told the station. Frankie Little's death has now been ruled a homicide, but who killed him remains unknown, she said. Little, who was born in Cleveland in 1943, played with the O'Jays in the mid-1960s. He was not a founding member of the group that began in Canton, Ohio, and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. He served in the U.S. Army for 2 years, including in the Vietnam War, but not much was known about his disappearance, WOIO reported. Walter Williams, one of the original members of the O'Jays, said Little wrote songs with Eddie Levert, another one of the band's founders, according to Hendershott, who helped revive the investigation into the remains. Part of the mystery is over with, but we have no idea how he got there, how he disappeared, or where he lived toward the end of his life, Hendershott said. Little was last known to reside in Cleveland during the mid-1970s, WOIO reported. If we get anyone who knew him in life, especially in the 1970s, who he was living with, who his associates were, that would be useful information in this case, Hendershott told the station. I'm going to go ahead and play the video that goes with this.
Twinsburg, Ohio, human remains found in 1982 have now finally been identified as Frankie Little, an R&B guitarist who disappeared in the 70s. Little was a member of the group the O'Jays, known for 1973's Love Train and other hits. Police released a sketch next to his picture. These remains were found behind a closed business, and they had signs of blunt force trauma. His death was ruled a homicide.
They were in the back of their parking lot and saw a skull just sitting in the snow. The remains were not complete. So that's sort of what we were left with from 1982, trying to find out how he got there and who could have put him there. That's, we don't know.
Affiliate WEWS says Little was last known to live in Cleveland. The DNA Doe Project has found some of his living relatives, and now police are working to find his killer 39 years after the remains were found.
So I think this is just proof that some of these cold cases will start to see being resolved, especially those with the DNA Doe Project, because I know they work very hard there to try to get matches. And I think that's good because me and D. Walsh, I believe, were talking about this the other day. Like, it bothers me and it puzzles me how these people are missing And let's just take Chicago, for example. There are people in the Chicago morgue that have yet to be identified, and we're talking years later. So you're telling me that these people had nobody that missed them at all? Some of these are young people, some of these are very old people. And it just bothers me because I don't understand that. So I'm glad that this case is actually getting some tread, and I hope that they do find out what happened to him, because that has to be hard. From 1982, just the mere fact of knowing now how he died all those years ago, and then now trying to figure out what was going on in his life at that time, and who he was associating with, and who was he around, and what was he into? You know, what did he do? Was he working a job? You know, all that stuff comes into play. So this will be really interesting, honestly, and I'm going to follow this case and see how it turns out. But I definitely want to bring this to the channel and just remind everybody that cold cases can get solved years later. So there is hope, in other words. And I'm going to end the video on that note. Thanks for watching, guys.